Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Q&A with me, Philippa Fabry. I'm an education consultant here in Gqeberha. And tonight we are summarizing the chat that I did last week with Dr. Danny Ahing, where we chatted about reading, learning to read, and then reading to learn, and the different stages that our children go through as they are maneuvering through school. I've always been fascinated with how children learn to read and why some children learn to read a lot easier than others. And this has kind of motivated me to do a lot of research. I became a remedial therapist. I started helping children with various reading problems and helping them to try and decode the reading. I suppose you could say reading is all about cracking the code. And so tonight we're going to just really quickly summarize that whole aspect. And I'm hoping that you will throw some questions my way. Tell me where you are, if you are watching, where you read it, where you're watching from. Are you a teacher? Are you a parent? And yeah, feel free to throw questions my way, and let's see what we can help you with. So yes, reading is all about cracking the code. And honestly, what I can say about that is children automatically learn to speak, but they don't automatically learn to read. As they sort of grow up, and we're talking about the preschool stage where they learn to rhyme and they learn to follow in a book when you as the parent is reading along in their bedtime story, and they're listening and they're looking at the pictures and they are developing this love for stories. And I think that's why it's so important that as parents, if your children are young and you have the time and you have the inclination to read to your children as much as possible. Then they enter school and they start grade 1 and the reading becomes formal. There's a formal reading and phonics program that the teacher will follow. And there'll be words and sounds that the child will learn in according to a sequence. There's a definite sequence of sounds that children learn. And again, it's all about learning those sounds and then slowly putting those sounds together to make little words, and then the words form sentences. So it's a step-by-step process. You can't just expose a child to a book and say, here you are, read, if they haven't learned the building blocks of decoding those words. So in the pre-reading stage, that is the preschool stage, you are reading to them and you are introducing them to books and you're showing them what a story is all about, and you're showing pictures, and you could even get them to choose their own storybook. They could start to read, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're comprehending what they're reading. So a child can read really well. In fact, they can memorize pages of words, but they're not necessarily understanding what they're reading. So it's also important that we identify the parts of reading. So it's all about decoding sounds, recognizing words, and then being able to understand what the sentence or what the text is all about. So as we move now into the lower primary school stages, so we're talking about grade 4 and 5, there are less opportunities for that child to have reading instruction at school. Here now, they're expected to already be able to read. There's no reading lessons, so to speak. It's all about language. It's all about grammar. It's all about reading along in the textbook and understanding what they are reading, doing comprehensions. So just going back again, foundation phase, they are reading lessons and the children are learned to read. They are taught to read and they learn to read. Moving into the lower primary school stages, they are now having to read to learn. Moving on into the upper primary schools, grade 6 and 7, their textbooks get longer. What they are needing to read becomes longer. Comprehensions become a little bit more tricky, and they are needing to use those higher order thinking skills. And the higher order thinking skills now are what Danny said last week. It's reading between the line, reading beyond the line, and reading below the line. So we are wanting children to not only be able to understand the text, but to be able to interpret what's going on in the story. So this becomes incredibly important as they move into high school, is to be able to look at a text, read the text, process the information, and make it yours. Interpret it in your own words. Use your own opinion. Use insight. Know when something is true and when something is false. Understand the difference between fact and fiction. These are all the necessary skills that children will need when they start studying for tests and exams. Okay, so moving into now high school. Again, it's all about what the child enjoys reading. So if your child is a reluctant reader and they're not a strong reader, so they do struggle to learn to read, or they struggle to read to learn, you need to find sort of unconventional ways to get them to read. We spoke last week, again, Danny and I spoke about getting them to read things that is not in a book. Let them read a comic. Let them read News 24. Talk about reading menus. Talk about reading things that are not school related. Reading needs to be fun. Reading needs to be something that you want to do, not something that you have to do. Find out what kind of books they enjoy. Visit the library. Get them to download a reading app. If they enjoy something to do with sharks, or if they enjoy something to do with, I don't know, agriculture or science, get them books about that. This is not something new, folks. We know about this. It's about just making a concerted effort to expose your children to read. And the more they read, the better their comprehension gets, the better their vocabulary gets, everything improves. So as high schoolers, when they have to now start studying, you know, they might not necessarily automatically adopt a study method or some kind of a way that they learn. Everybody's got a different way of learning. You might make mind maps. You might make notes. You might highlight. You might draw. You might make rhymes. Everybody's got a different way of learning. And if you don't know your child's learning style, that is something that I would suggest you try and find out. Are they visual? Are they auditory? Do they like to move? Are they kinesthetic study students? Find out what that way of learning is and help them to identify what their learning style is. So your learning profile is the way you are most comfortable absorbing information. As they go again now into further along into high school, it becomes very important that they are understanding what they're reading. That processing is very, very important, because if they are not able to learn, they're not going to be able to remember information. So when they are writing exams, the first step is being able to get that information into your head. And the second step is being able to get that information onto a piece of paper so that your teacher can mark what you've studied. So again, if you're not learning, you're not going to be able to write an exam, and you're not going to be able to prove what you know. So it's really a process that starts with how confident is the child with learning? How confident are they in being able to go into an exam with confidence and tell the teacher what they know? The teacher wants to know what they know, not what they don't know. So as parents, I think we have such an important role, because if we are not readers, if we are not automatic readers, so we don't generally pick up books, there are not a lot of books in the house. Our children are not exposed to books. They're not exposed to reading, because that's not our way. That's not our thing. It becomes more difficult to, again, instill those good habits about reading before bedtime. It's one way of just sort of settling down, switching your brain off, and putting the phones away and just getting ready to wind down and go to sleep. So it's important that you model those good habits. And again, if your child is struggling, try and find out what it is. Have them assessed. Go and speak to a remedial therapist or somebody that can maybe do an assessment on your child and find out where are the breaking down points. So, you know, have they not mastered that code, that phonetic code with the letters? Is it something where they haven't built up their repertoire of sight words? We spoke about sight words, those words being the words that they need to identify on sight. They can't sound them out. You can't try and sound out the word. You need to just automatically know that word. Maybe they haven't got a repertoire of words in their mind. So it's all about really trying to identify where did the foundations not really become solid. So go to a remedial therapist, get your child assessed, try and identify where the problem started. And again, remedial therapy is a very good way of building up those bricks in the wall. If it's phonics, if it's sight words, is it comprehension, is it processing, what is it? Is it confidence? Is it an aversion to reading? Is it a negative attitude? What is it? Let's try and identify what that is. So yes, I think reading difficulties, a child who has not automatically or easily learned to read, and there's some stumbling blocks there. We say that there about 1 in 5 children is going to struggle is going to struggle at school, and 9 times out of 10 that's with reading. So about 20% of children will struggle with reading, and about 4% will have a severe reading challenge. We call that dyslexia. So if your child is one of those 4%, a dyslexia is something that runs in the family. It's a severe reading difficulty. It's not just something that could be fixed. Generally, dyslexia is something that the child has to learn to live with and cope with. And we know lots of many people who have navigated through business and are very successful having dyslexia. So yeah, I think with parents, what you can do if your child is struggling with something at school, you need to make sure that collaboration with the school is there, that you are communicating, you're finding out how you can help at home. Keep those channels of communication open all the time. If you are battling to get through the homework, and if homework's becoming a real stress in your life, please speak to the teacher and see what we can do, see what she can do or he can do to help with that. Homework should not be a battle, and it should not be something stressful. It should not be something that you dread. When you get home from work, now you have to deal with homework, and it becomes a real stress. I said communicate with the teacher, make sure that you are on board with what suggestions the teacher is saying. Talk with your children about their strengths and weaknesses. Talk to them about what they enjoy, what they're struggling with, how you can help, what do they like, what don't they like, and try and encourage some kind of an activity outside of school where their strengths can be really nurtured. And we tend to focus on what our children can't do, and that becomes the be all and end all. We need to try and fix everything. But yeah, sure, those things need to be addressed, but we also need to look at what our children can do really well and nurture those, because who knows, one day that might become their career. So after school strategies, make sure you balance what happens at school with what happens after school. Make sure that they are doing something healthy in the exercise, something with the arts and the crafts and the music or sport or whatever it is. They should have something outside of school that they are doing, that they enjoy, karate, what have you. So as I finish off, I don't know if there are any questions. We've got 2 minutes left. And like I said, this is for you. This is an opportunity for you to ask questions, anything to do with reading. If you are looking to have your child assessed, and you want my details, my email address has popped up there. I've got a Facebook page, Philippa Fabry Education Consultant. You can pop along there. I also have a group. It's more of a sort of support group for parents. If your child is struggling with whatever that has to do with school, that is our village where we give support and we chat and we try and find solutions. So you can pop on to my village group and join us there. And then just finally, it is National Library Week. I think there's a picture that we're going to pop on the screen just before I say goodbye. Libraries Matter, South African Library Week, from the 15th to the 21st of March. So I would encourage you to join a library. You get a card. It is absolutely free. And there's also an app that you can download on your phone. You don't have to visit the library. All you need is a card. And your card has a number. And you can then download the app. There's an app called Libby, Libby. Libby. It's the library app, and all the books that are available to read on your phone or your iPad or your laptop, you can then go through. But all you need is a number. So you need to first register with your nearest library. They'll give you a card or a number, and then with that number, you can download books using the app Libby. So that's me for now. Thank you so much for watching. Next week on Wednesday, this time, we will be chatting about writing, getting thoughts down on paper. And it's going to be quite interesting because dysgraphia is something that we haven't always heard about. Dyslexia, yes, dyslexia, we've all heard about dyslexia, but dysgraphia is not being able to write and put your thoughts down on paper, and lots of children struggle with that. So join me next Wednesday, 8 o'clock. I'll be joined again by my friend, Dr. Danny Ahing, and we'll be unpacking this interesting topic. So thank you so much for joining me, and email me if there's anything you'd like to know further, philippafab@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.